Between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter lies a scar, a vast ring of shattered rock where a planet ought to be. Or modern science calls this a failure, the remnants of a world that never formed. But what if our most ancient myths tell the truth? What if they are not stories, but history, a record of a cosmic war? This is the story of a planet that was destroyed, and of the civilization that rose from its ashes. Our civilization. This radical theory begins not with telescopes, but with the oldest written records of humanity. The clay tablets of ancient Sumer. These texts, particularly the creation epic known as the Enuma Elish, have long been dismissed as mythology, but a literal interpretation reveals a stunningly precise account of our solar system's formation, one that includes a catastrophic event. The epic describes a large, primordial planet named Tiamat that once orbited where the asteroid belt is today. It tells of a rogue planet from deep space, which the Sumerians called Nibiru, or rather entered our system and collided with Tiamat, shattering it. According to this ancient record, one half of Tiamat was pulverized into the hammered bracelet of the asteroid belt, while the other half was thrown into a new orbit, eventually becoming Earth. This hypothesis suggests our world is the surviving half of a lost planet, a refugee of a celestial cataclysm, and this event is the starting point for understanding our true origins. The astronomical evidence for such a cataclysmic event is compelling. The asteroid belt itself, with its trillions of objects showing signs of having once been part of a larger, differentiated planetary body, fits the description of a shattered world. The oddities of our own planet, such as the immense chasm of the Pacific Ocean basin, are viewed as a scar from this impact, and our unusually large moon is recontextualized as Tiamat's original satellite, dragged along into a new orbit. The Tiamat theory provides a single, unified explanation for these enduring astronomical puzzles. It reframes our solar system, not as a place of peaceful evolution, but as the scene of an ancient conflict, one that set the stage for the emergence of life on Earth, not by chance, but as a direct consequence of this cosmic violence. This narrative then introduces the inhabitants of the invading planet, Nibiru. The Sumerian texts call them the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. These were not gods, the theory posits. They're technologically advanced extraterrestrials. They journeyed to Earth, the surviving half of Tiamat, for a singular purpose: to mine gold, which they needed to repair the deteriorating atmosphere of their home world. This reframes all of ancient mythology. The gods of antiquity were flesh and blood, Anunnaki astronauts. Their magic was advanced technology, and their heavenly chariots were spacecraft. Their arrival on Earth marks the beginning of a new chapter in our planet's history, one of direct intervention and guided development, a chapter that explains the sudden and inexplicable rise of human civilization. This framework of extraterrestrial intervention seeks to solve many of human history's greatest enigmas. The sudden appearance of the Sumerian civilization around 4000 BC, with its pre-packaged knowledge of astronomy, law, and agriculture, is explained as a gift from the Anunnaki. Ancient megalithic marvels like the pyramids of Giza or Pumapunku, with their impossibly precise stonework, and are presented as projects built with Anunnaki technology. The very origin of our species, Homo sapiens, is reimagined as an act of genetic engineering. The theory proposes that the Anunnaki, weary of mining gold themselves, combined their own DNA with that of a native hominid to create a new species of intelligent workers. This would account for the missing link in the sudden explosion in cognitive ability that defines humanity. Our creation myths, from Adam and Eve to the stories of Prometheus, are seen as distorted memories of these events, telling a story of humanity's creation, its servitude, and its perpetual striving for the knowledge of its alien gods. Proponents of this theory point to a wide array of out-of-place artifacts, OOP part as physical proof. Objects like the Baghdad Battery or ancient carvings resembling modern aircraft are cited as remnants of this lost Anunnaki technology. The advanced astronomical knowledge of ancient cultures who knew of distant planets like Uranus and Neptune without telescopes is also presented as a clear sign of inherited knowledge from a spacefaring race. This entire history is punctuated by periodic cataclysms caused by the return of Nibiru into the inner solar system every 3.600 years. Its immense gravitational pull would trigger disasters like the Great Flood, wiping the slate of civilization clean, only for it to be rebuilt by the survivors under the guidance of the returning Anunnaki. This cyclical pattern of destruction and rebirth provides a narrative for the rise and fall of great empires and the legends of lost civilizations like Atlantis. This comprehensive theory weaves together myth, astronomy, archaeology, and genetics into a single epic narrative. It suggests that our planet's past is far more complex and dramatic than we have ever been told. It posits that we are a hybrid species living on a fractured world, the inheritors of a cosmic legacy we have long forgotten. The evidence, it is argued, is all around us in the sky above, in the ground beneath our feet, and encoded in our very DNA. This genetic inheritance, the supposed signature of our extraterrestrial creators, offers the next layer of this profound mystery, a biological puzzle box waiting to be unlocked, which suggests our potential and our destiny may be far grander than we have ever imagined. The clues hidden within our own cells may hold the key to understanding not only our past, but the future of humanity as a species born from the stars. The field of genetics presents what many consider to be the most profound and personal evidence for this theory. The human genome is a tapestry of incredible complexity, and within its billions of base pairs lie mysteries that continue to puzzle scientists. Proponents of the Tiamat theory argue that these genetic puzzles are not the result of random mutation and natural selection alone, but are instead the unmistakable fingerprints of sophisticated genetic engineering. They point to the 223 genes that are present in the human genome but are absent in the evolutionary lineage leading up to us. Mainstream science often attributes these to horizontal gene transfer from bacteria, but the theory suggests a more direct source. They were inserted by the Anunnaki. These genes are responsible for critical aspects of our advanced physiology and cognition, effectively acting as the software upgrade that transformed a primitive hominid into Homo sapiens. Furthermore, the so-called junk DNA, which constitutes more than 95% of our genome and appears to have no function, is reinterpreted. It is proposed that this is not junk at all, but a vast, dormant genetic archive. It may contain the full genetic potential of our Anunnaki creators, locked away and inaccessible to us, alongside latent code and biological programs that could be activated under certain conditions. This dormant DNA could be a failsafe, a backup, or a planned evolutionary pathway, waiting for a trigger to unlock abilities and traits far beyond our current comprehension. The rapid evolution of the human brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex responsible for abstract thought and planning, is also cited as evidence. The speed and scale of this development are seen as biologically implausible. Without an external catalyst, an intelligent guiding hand accelerating the process for a specific purpose. This genetic narrative also seeks to explain certain inherited diseases and biological weaknesses in humans. These are not seen as simple evolutionary flaws, but as potential consequences of the hybridization process, genetic incompatibilities between Anunnaki and terrestrial DNA, or perhaps even deliberate limitations programmed into our genome to ensure our subservience and dependence. The story of humanity, from this perspective, is written in our blood and bone. We are living artifacts, biological machines whose operating system was designed by beings from another world. The quest to understand our origins, Hafer, becomes a quest to decode our own genome, to read the engineer's notes left behind in our DNA, a legacy of creation that makes us unique among all life on Earth. This exploration of genetic engineering leads to an examination of ancient texts with new eyes. Stories of gods mating with mortals to produce heroes or demigods are no longer seen as purely symbolic. They are reinterpreted as literal accounts of breeding programs between the Anunnaki and their human creations. The meticulous genealogies of ancient kings tracing their lineage to the gods become crucial data, suggesting these royal bloodlines were deliberately managed to preserve a higher concentration of Anunnaki DNA, granting them longevity, wisdom, and the divine right to rule. The myths of heroes undertaking impossible quests to gain immortality are seen as tales of individuals trying to unlock the full genetic potential of their creators, to reverse the limitations placed upon them and become gods themselves. The evidence for this ancient genetic manipulation is sought not only in our DNA, but in the biological world around us. The sudden appearance of domesticated crops and animals at the dawn of agriculture is presented not as a slow process of human trial and error, but as a rapid introduction of genetically modified organisms provided by the Anunnaki. They gave humanity pre-engineered plants like wheat and barley and domesticated animals to create a stable food supply necessary to support the cities and labor forces that would serve them. This would explain why the wild ancestors of many of our primary food sources have never been conclusively identified. They may not have wild ancestors on Earth because they were, in effect, alien technology, biological tools brought to or created on this planet to build a new civilization. The very structure of Earth's biosphere then comes into question. If humanity was engineered, and our primary food sources were engineered, what else in our ecosystem bears the mark of this ancient intervention? Some theorists suggest that many species may have been subject to genetic tinkering, creating a planet that was not just a mining colony, but a vast biological laboratory. This deepens the implications of the Tiamat theory far beyond a simple story of our own origins. It suggests that the entire web of life on Earth may be, in part, an artificial construct, a garden planted and tended by extraterrestrial geneticists for purposes we can only begin to fathom. The diversity of life, its sudden explosions of complexity like the Cambrian event, and its mysterious extinctions, could all be chapters in a story of planetary-scale biological engineering over eons. Our planet becomes not just a home, but an artifact, and the key to its history lies in learning to read the language of life itself, the genetic code that binds every living thing. From this perspective, the Anunnaki were not just miners or geneticists. They were planetary engineers. They took the shattered half of a dead world, a waterlogged and chaotic Earth, and systematically transformed it into a habitable, life-bearing planet. The ancient texts are interpreted to contain descriptions of these massive engineering projects. They speak of separating the waters from the land, of creating a firmament or atmosphere, of bringing forth life. This is read not as divine creation ex nihilo, but as a description of advanced terraforming. The Anunnaki may have used their technology to stabilize the new orbit of Earth, to process its atmosphere and make it breathable, to establish its climate systems, and to manage its geological activity. The great geological and climatic cycles of our planet may be evidence of these ancient control systems still at work, the remarkable stability of Earth's climate over millions of years. Despite cosmic and solar fluctuations that should have caused drastic changes, is proposed as evidence of an artificial regulatory system, a planetary thermostat left behind by the Anunnaki. This could be a technological network so advanced that it has merged with the planet's own geological and atmospheric processes, operating invisibly to maintain the delicate balance necessary for life. The legends of Atlantis as a technologically advanced city that controlled the weather might be a distant memory of this capability. This idea of planetary engineering extends to the very structure of the continents. The precise fit of South America and Africa, for example, is seen not just as evidence of natural plate tectonics, but as a sign that the continents were deliberately shaped or positioned. The placement of major mineral deposits, particularly gold, in accessible locations is also questioned. Was this a random geological lottery, or the result of a deliberate survey and planetary modification by the Anunnaki to make their mining operations more efficient? The theory suggests we may be living on a world whose fundamental geography and climate are not entirely natural, but are the result of an ancient planet-wide construction project. The evidence for such engineering is sought in geological anomalies, unexplained magnetic fields, and strange energy grids that are said to crisscross the planet, connecting ancient sacred sites. These ley lines are proposed to be remnants of an ancient power distribution system, harnessing the Earth's natural electromagnetic energy to power Anunnaki technology. The megalithic sites themselves, knelt at the nodes of this grid, were not just temples or tombs, but functional components of this planetary machine, power plants, observatories, and communication centers. This turns the entire planet into a unified piece of ancient technology, a legacy of a civilization that could shape worlds. The disappearance of the Anunnaki from Earth is another crucial part of the narrative. Why did they leave? The texts are interpreted to suggest several reasons. Their primary mission to acquire enough gold to save Nibiru may have been completed. Perhaps political infighting and conflict among the Anunnaki themselves, a theme rampant in the myths, led to the abandonment of the Earth colony. The cyclical return of Nibiru and the cataclysms it caused would have also made a permanent settlement on Earth difficult and dangerous. The theory proposes that the Anunnaki eventually departed, leaving humanity to its own devices, but promising to return one day. This promise of return is a fundamental element in countless religions and mythologies. The return of a messiah, a god, or a sky hero is a universal theme. The Tiamat theory posits that these are all racial memories of the Anunnaki's promise to come back when their home planet Nibiru next passes through our part of the solar system. This prophecy frames our entire history as a waiting period, an interregnum between the departure of our creators and their eventual return, and it colours our future with a sense of anticipation and trepidation. What would happen if they did return? Would they see our current civilization as a success or a failure? Would they return as saviors or as masters reclaiming their property? The theory thus provides a complete, self-contained narrative loop from the creation of our world to the creation of humanity, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the promise of a future return that will bring our hidden history full circle. It is a story of immense scale, spanning billions of years and the entire solar system. It seeks to answer not only the question of where we came from, but also where we might be going. It suggests that our destiny is inextricably linked to the forgotten history of our solar system and the wandering planet of our creators. The evidence for this grand narrative, it is claimed, is all around us. If we only dare to look, and the most compelling physical artifacts of this history may not be on Earth at all, but scattered throughout the solar system, on the Moon, on Mars, and beyond. Silent testaments to the interplanetary reach of our ancient progenitors. Space archaeology, the search for artificial structures on other worlds, becomes a critical field of inquiry under this paradigm. Proponents argue that if the Anunnaki had the technology to travel between planets, they would surely have established bases and operations throughout the solar system. The Moon, with its lack of atmosphere and erosion, would be the perfect place to preserve such ancient artifacts. Anomalies in photographs from lunar missions, strange geometric formations, and what appear to be the ruins of structures are presented as evidence of ancient lunar bases, perhaps used as way stations or observatories. These structures are often dismissed by mainstream science as tricks of light and shadow or natural geological formations, but the theory insists they are the weathered remains of Anunnaki outposts. Mars is another key location. The face on Mars in the Cydonia region, captured by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976, became an iconic image for the ancient astronaut movement. Though higher resolution images have since shown it to be a natural mesa, proponents argue that it is an artificial monument, heavily eroded by time, along with other nearby structures dubbed the City and the Pyramid. Evidence of ancient rivers and oceans on Mars is seen not as a sign of natural climate change, but as the result of a failed terraforming attempt by the Anunnaki, or perhaps the remnants of a Martian civilization that was destroyed long ago, maybe even in the same cosmic conflict that shattered Tiamat. The asteroid belt itself is seen as an archaeological site of immense importance. If it is the remains of Tiamat, then its fragments should contain the ruins of its cities and the fossilized remains of its life forms. The theory suggests that future missions to mine or explore asteroids will uncover not just rock and metal, but the unmistakable artifacts of a lost world. The chemical and isotopic signatures found in meteorites are scrutinized for anomalies that could indicate artificial origins or the presence of advanced biological processes. Each strange rock that falls from the sky is a potential message in a bottle from a world that died billions of years ago. This interplanetary perspective transforms the search for extraterrestrial life. Instead of looking for aliens in distant star systems, the theory suggests we should be looking for them in our own backyard. They are not hypothetical beings on some far-off exoplanet. They are our ancestors, our creators, and their history is our history. Their artifacts are scattered across the planets and moons of our solar system, waiting for their genetically engineered children to become advanced enough to find them. This makes space exploration not just a scientific endeavor, but an archaeological and anthropological quest to uncover our true family history. It is a search for ourselves, for the missing chapters of our own story, a story that begins with a world named Tiamat. Our exploration has led us to a startling possibility that our history is not confined to Earth alone, and that the most compelling physical artifacts of our ancient progenitors, the Anunnaki, are not buried beneath our soil, but are scattered throughout the solar system. To follow this trail of evidence, our journey must now leave the cradle of Earth and venture into the silent, sterile environments of space, where the ravages of time are held at bay. Our search for these ghostly footprints begins with our closest celestial neighbor, the Moon. If the Anunnaki possessed the technology for interplanetary travel, it is logical to assume they would have established outposts, mining operations, and observatories on other bodies within our solar system. The Moon, our silent celestial companion, would have been the most logical first step, with no atmosphere to cause erosion and minimal geological activity. Its surface is a pristine museum capable of preserving structures and artifacts for millions, or even billions, of years. It is here the proponents of the theory argue that the evidence is clearest and most deliberately ignored. For decades, researchers and anomalists have scrutinized the photographic archives of NASA's lunar missions, from the early orbiters to the Apollo landings. They have identified a vast number of features that they claim are not natural geological formations, but are in fact artificial structures. The Euclid crater, for instance, contains a perfectly equilateral triangle of bright points near its center. However, formation so geometrically precise that it defies natural explanation. In the Sea of Tranquility, a towering structure dubbed the Shard rises over a mile from the lunar surface, casting a long, distinct shadow. Nearby stands the Tower, a complex, spindly structure that appears to be composed of repeating cubical units. Mainstream science explains these as tricks of light, shadow, and low-resolution imagery, but the theory posits they are the heavily eroded remains of massive Anunnaki constructions, perhaps communication towers or power generators. Beyond individual structures, entire regions of the moon are pointed to as evidence of large-scale operations. The Sinus Media region is said to contain a massive complex of ruins, including what appear to be grid-like city plans and the foundations of enormous buildings. Visible under specific lighting conditions, photographs of the far side of the moon, perpetually hidden from Earth, are particularly scrutinized, as this would have been the ideal location for a discrete Anunnaki base of operations. Here, researchers claim to have found evidence of vast open-pit mining operations, or colossal vehicle tracks, and even the remains of large spacecraft sitting derelict on the lunar dust. These are not small anomalies, but features stretching for miles, suggesting an industrial presence on a scale we can barely comprehend. The theory suggests these were the Anunnaki's primary bases, where they processed materials mined from the moon itself, and perhaps coordinated their Earth-based operations, safe from the geological and political turmoil of our own planet. The materials themselves present a puzzle. Some Apollo astronauts reported seeing strange glows and colored lights on the lunar surface. Modern analysis of lunar soil samples has revealed the presence of processed metals like brass and mica in forms that suggest they are not of natural origin. These findings are often downplayed or dismissed, but the theory seizes upon them as proof of artificiality. The Anunnaki, it is argued, did not just visit the moon, they colonized and industrialized it. Its sterile, stable environment made it the perfect off-world factory and command center for their long dominion over the solar system. The ruins we see today are but the faintest echoes of their once great presence, a silent testament to a chapter of history that has been deliberately kept from us. Mars, the next logical destination for any spacefaring race, offers an even more compelling canvas for this theory. Since the first images were returned by the Mariner and Viking probes, Mars has been a source of intense speculation. The most famous anomaly is the face on Mars, located in a region called Cydonia. The 1976 Viking 1 image shows what appears to be a massive, humanoid face staring up from the Martian surface, nearly 2 miles long. Nearby are other suggestive formations, including a cluster of pyramid-like structures referred to as the City and the DDP Pyramid, with its apparent 5-sided symmetry. While NASA has since released higher-resolution images that show the face to be a heavily eroded natural mesa, proponents of the theory argue that these new images have been intentionally altered, or that they simply show a much older, more weathered version of what was once a clear artificial monument. They argue that the Cydonian complex was a grand statement and calling card left by the Anunnaki, built to resemble their own likeness. Its alignment and relationship to the other structures are claimed to have sophisticated mathematical and astronomical significance, pointing to specific constellations and solstices. It was, in this view, a Martian Giza plateau, a ceremonial center that encoded the knowledge of its builders. The erosion is explained as the result of a massive cataclysm that struck Mars in the distant past, stripping it of its atmosphere and oceans, an event that may have been connected to the very same cosmic conflict that destroyed Tiamat. In this scenario, Mars was once a habitable world, another outpost of the Anunnaki, and the ruins of Cydonia are all that remain of its former glory. The evidence on Mars extends beyond Cydonia. Images from modern rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance are constantly scrutinized by online researchers who claim to find evidence of artificiality. They point to rocks that have unnatural-looking geometric shapes, metallic-looking debris that resembles machine parts, and even what appear to be small fossilized creatures or carved statuettes. While these are universally dismissed by NASA as examples of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns in random shapes, the sheer volume of these anomalies, keeps the theory alive. Proponents argue that the scientific establishment has a vested interest in maintaining the narrative of a dead, sterile Mars, and that evidence of past life or civilization is being systematically overlooked or suppressed. The traces of ancient water on Mars, the dried-up riverbeds, deltas, and ocean basins are woven into the Tiamat narrative as well. These features suggest Mars once had a thick atmosphere and a vibrant hydrosphere, making it a truly Earth-like world. The theory posits that the Anunnaki may have attempted to terraform Mars to make it a more permanent home or a larger agricultural colony. The planet's current desolate state is seen as the result of a catastrophic failure of this engineering project, or perhaps the result of interplanetary warfare. The thin atmosphere and reddish dust are the scars of a world that died, its story waiting to be uncovered beneath the sand. Every mission to Mars, therefore, is not just a search for microbial life, but a potential archaeological dig into the ruins of an Anunnaki civilization, a lost branch of our own cosmic family tree. The most profound archaeological site in our solar system, according to the Tiamat theory, is the asteroid belt itself. If the belt is truly the shattered remains of a primordial planet, then it is a celestial graveyard containing the ultimate proof. Proponents envision a future where humanity ventures into the belt not just to mine for minerals, but to search for the artifacts of Tiamat itself. They expect to find not just rock and ice, but the fractured remnants of mountains and continents, the ruins of cities flash frozen in the vacuum of space, and perhaps even the fossilized remains of the life forms that once inhabited that world. This turns the asteroid belt from a navigational hazard into the most important archaeological site in human history. The theory suggests that the diverse compositions of asteroids are clues to their origin. The metallic asteroids are the fragments of Tiamat's core, the stony asteroids are pieces of its mantle and crust, and the carbonaceous chondrites, rich in water and organic compounds, are the remnants of its life-bearing surface and oceans. Hores, the discovery of amino acids and other building blocks of life in meteorites that have fallen to Earth, is seen as direct confirmation that Tiamat was a living world. These celestial messengers are fragments of our original home, delivering the very seeds of life to the surviving half of the planet after the Great Cataclysm. The idea of exploring these fragments is a key element of the theory's future predictions. It suggests that once our technology is advanced enough to mount missions into the asteroid belt, and we will find undeniable proof, an asteroid might be found that is not a solid chunk of rock, but a hollowed-out ruin, a piece of a building or vehicle. Another might contain the fossil of an alien creature, unlike anything that ever evolved on Earth. The discovery of just one such artifact would rewrite our entire understanding of history and our place in the cosmos. The asteroid belt is thus the ultimate treasure chest, a scattered puzzle waiting for its descendants to return and piece together the story of their own violent birth. This interplanetary archaeological perspective transforms our entire solar system into a historical landscape. Every planet and moon becomes a potential location for Anunnaki activity. The strange features of Saturn's moons, like the hexagonal storm on its north pole or the equatorial ridge on Iapetus that makes it look like a walnut, you are viewed with suspicion. Could these be natural phenomena, or are they signs of massive, ancient astroengineering projects? The moons of Jupiter, particularly the volcanic Io and the ocean world Europa, are also considered prime candidates for ancient bases or mining outposts. The theory encourages a mindset where no celestial feature is taken for granted, where every anomaly is a potential clue, and where the entire solar system is seen as the former territory of a vast, ancient empire. This narrative also provides a compelling reason for a renewed and vigorous space program. The motivation is not just scientific discovery or national pride, but a quest for our own identity, a search for our creators, and an uncovering of a suppressed history of immense importance. It suggests that the answers to the greatest questions of humanity are not to be found by looking deeper into space toward distant stars, but by looking more closely at our immediate neighbors. The truth, it is claimed, is right here, scattered among the worlds of our own solar system, waiting for us to find it. This re-examination of our solar system's history naturally leads back to the cyclical nature of the Anunnaki's presence. If they established such vast infrastructure, why does it all appear to be in ruins? The answer again lies in the destructive orbit of their home world, Nibiru. Each passage through the inner solar system would not only wreak havoc on Earth, but would also threaten their own interplanetary installations. This would force them into a cycle of building, abandoning, and rebuilding. It would explain why the evidence appears so ancient and weathered. The structures on Mars and the Moon could be from a much earlier cycle of colonization, destroyed or abandoned eons ago, and never rebuilt. This cyclical model also suggests that the Anunnaki's focus might have shifted over time. Perhaps in earlier cycles, they invested heavily in colonizing Mars and the Moon, only to see those efforts destroyed. In later cycles, they may have focused more exclusively on Earth, finding it more resilient or simply more valuable. Hence, this would create layers of archaeology throughout the solar system, with the oldest and most mysterious ruins found on the most distant or inhospitable worlds. Each planet and moon becomes a chapter in a long and complex history of extraterrestrial colonization, with periods of intense activity followed by long ages of abandonment and decay. The knowledge required to understand this vast history, the theory insists, was deliberately left for us to find, but in a form that we would only be able to access once we reached a certain level of technological sophistication. This leads to the concept of a legacy, a deliberately planned inheritance of knowledge. This isn't just about finding ruined buildings or crashed ships, but about discovering functioning artifacts and data caches designed to survive for millions of years. The theory proposes that the Anunnaki left behind a series of clues and technological breadcrumbs designed to lead us, their creations, back to an understanding of our true heritage. This is where the idea of ancient automatons and artificial intelligences comes into play. The Anunnaki, anticipating their long absences and the cyclical destruction, may have left behind automated systems to monitor Earth and the solar system. These systems would act as caretakers, guardians, and librarians, preserving knowledge and perhaps even subtly guiding our development. The Black Knight satellite, a mysterious object in near-polar orbit that has been tracked by multiple agencies, is often cited as a prime example. Proponents claim it is an ancient Anunnaki probe, thousands of years old, that is still observing Earth, a silent sentinel from our creators. Other artifacts, like the mysterious signals detected from deep space or the strange anomalies on the Moon, are seen as part of this network of ancient technology. They are not dead ruins, but are still functioning, carrying out their long-programmed missions. This suggests that we are not entirely alone. Even in the absence of the Anunnaki themselves, we are being watched over by their machines, which are waiting for us to reach a predetermined level of maturity. When that time comes, these ancient systems might activate, revealing their secrets and initiating a new phase of our development, direct contact with the legacy of our creators. This entire framework of space archaeology and ancient technology provides a powerful, alternative narrative for our existence. It takes the mysteries and anomalies of our solar system and weaves them into a single, epic story of creation, colonization, destruction, and legacy. It suggests that the history of intelligent life in our solar system is far older, grander, and more violent than we ever imagined. It transforms us from the accidental masters of a lonely planet into the lost children of an ancient spacefaring empire, and it implies that our future is not ours alone to decide, but is tied to the return of our creators and the rediscovery of the incredible technologies they left behind for us to find among the ruins of their former worlds. The search for this evidence becomes the most important quest humanity could undertake. It is a journey to solve the mystery of our past, in order to understand the possibilities of our future. Every new image from Mars, every lunar probe, every asteroid mission holds the potential for a discovery that could change everything. The theory posits that the truth is written in the heavens, but it is a history that can only be read by those who dare to travel there. The silence from the stars is reinterpreted not as emptiness, but as a challenge, an invitation to venture out and reclaim our own forgotten history from the celestial graveyard that surrounds us. The ghosts of Tiamat and the legacy of the Anunnaki are waiting. The legacy of the Anunnaki, this theory suggests, is not only waiting for us in the cold vacuum of space, but is also buried deep within the Earth's own memory, in the trauma of its geology and the oldest stories of its people. If a massive planetary body like Nibiru passes through the inner solar system, every few thousand years, its influence would not be subtle. It would be an agent of immense and recurring catastrophe, a celestial reset button that has shaped life on this planet for eons. It is in the evidence for these world-breaking cataclysms that we find the next layer of this profound and unsettling narrative. One of the most powerful threads in this tapestry of evidence is the universality of the Great Flood myth. Virtually every culture on every continent has a foundational story of a world-destroying deluge, a time when the oceans rose and all of humanity was wiped out, save for a handful of chosen survivors, a story we explored briefly before, but one that deserves a much deeper examination. Conventional scholarship often dismisses these as independent stories of localized floods, embellished over generations into epic myths. But the Tiamat theory argues that the stunning similarities in these tales are not coincidence, but the fragmented collective memory of a single, real, global event, an event triggered by the gravitational passage of Nibiru. We must return to the oldest version of this story, the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, where the survivor Aperishtim recounts the tale. The Anunnaki Council, led by the stern commander Enlil, decides to allow the impending cataclysm to destroy humankind, which has grown too numerous and too noisy. But the scientist god Enki, who had a primary role in humanity's creation, feels a sense of responsibility. He secretly warns Aperishtim, instructing him to build a great vessel and preserve the seed of life. This narrative is crucial because it frames the cataclysm not as a whimsical act of divine punishment for human sin, but as a political and logistical decision made by extraterrestrial colonizers. The passage of Nibiru was a predictable astronomical event, and the Anunnaki simply chose to use it as an opportunity to manage their human experiment. This interpretation provides a powerful new context for the hundreds of other flood myths found around the world. The story of Noah in the Hebrew Bible mirrors the tale of Utnapishtim almost exactly. In India, a progenitor of humanity named Manu is warned by the god Vishnu of a coming flood. In Greek mythology, Deucalion and his wife survive a deluge sent by Zeus. The Aztec and Maya legends of Central America speak of previous worlds or suns that were each destroyed by a different catastrophe, with a great flood being one of them. The sheer global distribution of this specific narrative, a warning, a boat, a handful of survivors, a world drowned, is presented as irrefutable proof of a shared historical trauma, a memory of an event so devastating that it became the foundational story for nearly every culture that emerged in its wake. The theory then searches for physical proof of this cataclysm in the geological record, dating it to the end of the last ice age, around 11.000 to 13.000 years ago. This period, known as the Younger Dryas, was a time of incredibly abrupt and violent climate change. Mainstream science has documented evidence for enormous megafloods during this era, like the ones that carved the channeled scablands of Washington state, and attributes them to the bursting of massive glacial dams. The Tiamat theory, however, posits that these were not isolated events, but were all part of a single global disaster. The close passage of Nibiru, it is argued, would have exerted immense gravitational and thermal stress on Earth, warping the crust, triggering massive earthquakes and volcanoes, and causing the vast Laurentide and Scandinavian ice sheets to fracture and melt with catastrophic speed. This rapid melting would have released unfathomable volumes of fresh water into the oceans, causing sea levels to rise by hundreds of feet in a very short period. This matches the mythical descriptions of the oceans rising to cover the entire world. The theory also points to evidence of a sudden pole shift during this time. The gravitational pull of a massive passing body could have destabilized the Earth's rotation, causing the crust to shift over the mantle. This would move continents into new climates almost overnight, explaining the thousands of woolly mammoths and other megafauna found flash frozen in the Siberian permafrost. These creatures were not killed by a gradual ice age, but by a sudden, catastrophic deep freeze so rapid that undigested food was still preserved in their stomachs, a testament to the instantaneous nature of the disaster. This recurring cycle of destruction provides a compelling explanation for the legend of lost, highly advanced civilizations such as Atlantis. Plato's account of Atlantis describes a sophisticated island nation with advanced engineering and powerful influence, which was destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune and submerged beneath the sea. The Tiamat theory embraces this story as literal history. Atlantis, it suggests, was not a myth but the capital of the last major human civilization of the previous cycle, a society that had perhaps retained more of the original knowledge given to them by the Anunnaki. Its destruction was not a unique event, but simply the most well-remembered casualty of Nibiru's last destructive passage. This concept of a lost mother culture from before the flood is then used to explain the otherwise inexplicable similarities between the earliest known civilizations of our current historical cycle. Why do we see pyramids in both Egypt and the Americas? Why do we see shared astronomical alignments and religious motifs in cultures separated by vast oceans? The theory answers that these are not independent inventions, but the common inheritance of a single, advanced pre-flood civilization. The few survivors of the Atlantean cataclysm, it is argued, spread across the globe, becoming the culture bearers or civilizing gods of legend. They were the ones who taught the scattered primitive tribes of post-flood humanity the basics of agriculture, mathematics, and architecture, kickstarting the new cycle of civilization in places like Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. The search for physical evidence of these pre-flood civilizations focuses on archaeological sites that defy conventional timelines and explanations. The temple complex of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to nearly 12,000 years ago, stands as a prime exhibit. Its massive, intricately carved stone pillars and complex architecture were supposedly built by hunter-gatherers, a feat that seems almost impossible given their presumed level of social organization and technology. The theory suggests a different explanation. Göbekli Tepe was built by the sophisticated survivors of the flood, a remnant of the Atlantean civilization attempting to rebuild their world or create a celestial observatory to track the agent of their destruction. Another powerful example is Puma Punku in the highlands of Bolivia. Here we find enormous blocks of extremely hard stone, cut with a precision that appears to require machine tools. The complex interlocking shapes, perfectly smooth faces, and precisely drilled holes seem far beyond the capabilities of any known ancient culture. Proponents of the theory see Puma Punku not as the work of the later Inca or Tiwanaku people, but as the ruins of a much older, pre-flood city that possessed Anunnaki-derived technology. The cataclysmic way the massive stones are scattered about is seen as further evidence of a disaster of unimaginable power, one that could toss 100-ton blocks around like pebbles. The same argument is applied to the megalithic foundations at Baalbek in Lebanon, where stones weighing up to 1.200 tons form a platform upon which the later Romans built their temples. The sheer scale of these monoliths defies any known ancient or even modern construction method. The theory posits that the Romans, like many other ancient cultures, simply built on top of a much older, more impressive structure, a sacred platform left behind by their divine predecessors from before the Great Flood. These sites, along with others like Stonehenge or the massive stone spheres of Costa Rica, are presented as a global network of evidence, all pointing to a lost chapter of human history, a time when technology was far more advanced than our history books allow. This recurring cycle of cataclysm, destruction, and rebirth provides a powerful narrative framework for understanding the entirety of human history. It suggests our past is not a linear progression from primitive to advanced, but a series of peaks and valleys, dictated by the heavens. Each time humanity reaches a certain level of sophistication, the cycle of Nibiru resets the board, preserving only fragments of knowledge and forcing the survivors to begin again. The Anunnaki themselves are key players in this drama, sometimes allowing the destruction to happen unimpeded, at other times intervening to save a chosen few. Their motives remain complex. Are they callous observers, pragmatic managers, or conflicted guardians? The theory suggests that this cycle may also be a form of deliberate control. By periodically wiping the slate clean, the Anunnaki could ensure that humanity never becomes advanced enough to challenge their authority or to leave the planet and discover the true nature of the solar system on their own. We are kept in a planetary cradle, with our memories erased by each passing cataclysm, allowing our creators to manage our development and continue their own agenda without interference. Our history is a loop, and the flood myths are the scar tissue on our collective consciousness, a reminder of the cosmic forces that truly govern our world. This perspective re-enchants the world, seeing ancient ruins not as the primitive beginnings of our civilization, but as the sophisticated endings of another. It sees our oldest myths not as fanciful stories, but as the garbled science and history of a forgotten age. It implies that the deepest truths of our existence are not waiting to be discovered in the future, but are waiting to be remembered from our past. The evidence for this past, it is claimed, is not only found in stone and legend, but is also buried deep beneath the waves, in the lost cities and submerged landscapes that now lie on the ocean floor. A silent testament to the last time the world was drowned, and to the advanced civilization that was lost beneath the waters, a civilization we know by the name of Atlantis. The story of Atlantis, as recounted by Plato, provides a remarkably detailed blueprint for what a pre-flood Anunnaki-influenced civilization might have looked like. Plato described it as an island continent located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, with a circular capital city built of concentric rings of land and water. He spoke of advanced engineering, with canals for irrigation and transport, and structures built of exotic metals. He described a powerful military and a society ruled by kings who were descended from the god Poseidon. According to the Tiamat theory, Poseidon was simply the Greek name for one of the leading Anunnaki, perhaps Enki, who was known in Sumerian texts as the Lord of the Waters and Wisdom. The theory posits that Atlantis was the central hub of a global maritime empire, the last great civilization of its cycle. Its destruction by flood and earthquake was not a localized event, but the epicenter of the global cataclysm caused by Nibiru's passage when Atlantis sank. Its colonial outposts around the world were cut off, and its knowledge was fragmented, leading to the collapse of the global system. The search for the physical location of Atlantis has captivated explorers for centuries, with proposed locations ranging from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean and even Antarctica. Proponents of this theory believe that evidence of its existence can be found in underwater sonar maps that show unnaturally geometric formations on the seafloor, and in the sudden appearance of sophisticated cultures in the historical record. This framework suggests that many mysteries of the ancient world can be explained as the work of Atlantean survivors. The Olmec civilization in Mexico, with its giant stone heads depicting features some describe as African, could have been founded by a group of Atlantean refugees who crossed the ocean. The sudden appearance of sophisticated mummification techniques in both Egypt and parts of South America is seen as evidence of a shared technological heritage from this lost mother culture. The legends of white-skinned, bearded gods who came from the sea, like Viracocha in the Andes, are interpreted as descriptions of these surviving Atlantean leaders spreading the knowledge of their fallen civilization. This cyclical narrative of destruction also provides a context for the Anunnaki's long-term project. They were not simply mining gold for a few centuries, but for many, many cycles. Their operations on Earth spanned tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years. They would establish a human workforce, oversee its development into a functional civilization capable of carrying out the mining labor, and then retreat during the periodic Nibiru-induced cataclysms, only to return afterwards to restart the process with the survivors. This makes their relationship with humanity one of long-term husbandry. It explains why they would invest so much in our genetic creation and societal development. We were a renewable resource, a long-term asset in their cosmic enterprise. The evidence for this long history of intervention is sought in the very deepest layers of archaeology and geology. Layers of human activity are found far below where they should be, suggesting civilizations that are tens of thousands of years older than currently accepted. The theory suggests that if we were to dig deep enough beneath the oldest known cities of Sumer and Egypt, we would find the ruins of even older cities from previous cycles, each one buried by the mud and silt of a forgotten deluge. Our entire history is built upon a foundation of lost worlds, and the flood myths are the key that unlocks this hidden timeline. They are the demarcation line between one cycle and the next, the recurring event that both ends and begins the story of humanity on Earth. This cycle, governed by the inexorable orbit of Nibiru, is the true engine of our history, and its next return hangs over our future like a shadow from the past, a future that may have been foretold in the calendars and prophecies of the very ancients who survived it last time. This cyclical perspective re-enchants the world, seeing ancient ruins not as the primitive beginnings of our civilization, but as the sophisticated endings of another. It sees our oldest myths not as fanciful stories, but as the garbled science and history of a forgotten age. It implies that the deepest truths of our existence are not waiting to be discovered in the future, but are waiting to be remembered from our past. The evidence for this past, it is claimed, is not only found in stone and legend, but is also buried deep beneath the waves, in the lost cities and submerged landscapes that now lie on the ocean floor, a silent testament to the last time the world was drowned, and to the advanced civilization that was lost beneath the waters, a civilization we know by the name of Atlantis. The story of Atlantis, as recounted by Plato, provides a remarkably detailed blueprint for what a pre-flood, Anunnaki-influenced civilization might have looked like. Plato described it as an island continent located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, with a circular capital city built of concentric rings of land and water. He spoke of advanced engineering, with canals for irrigation and transport, and structures built of exotic metals. He described a powerful military and a society ruled by kings who were descended from the god Poseidon. According to the Tiamat theory, Poseidon was simply the Greek name for one of the leading Anunnaki, perhaps Enki, who was known in Sumerian texts as the Lord of the Waters and Wisdom. The theory posits that Atlantis was the central hub of a global maritime empire, the last great civilization of its cycle. Its destruction by flood and earthquake was not a localized event, but the epicenter of the global cataclysm caused by Nibiru's passage. When Atlantis sank, its colonial outposts around the world were cut off, and its knowledge was fragmented, leading to the collapse of the global system. The search for the physical location of Atlantis has captivated explorers for centuries, with proposed locations ranging from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean and even Antarctica. Proponents of this theory believe that evidence of its existence can be found in underwater sonar maps that show unnaturally geometric formations on the seafloor, and in the sudden appearance of sophisticated cultures in the historical record. This framework suggests that many mysteries of the ancient world can be explained as the work of Atlantean survivors. The Olmec civilization in Mexico, with its giant stone heads depicting features some describe as African, could have been founded by a group of Atlantean refugees who crossed the ocean. The sudden appearance of sophisticated mummification techniques in both Egypt and parts of South America is seen as evidence of a shared technological heritage from this lost mother culture. The legends of white-skinned, bearded gods who came from the sea, like Viracocha in the Andes, are interpreted as descriptions of these surviving Atlantean leaders spreading the knowledge of their fallen civilization. This cyclical narrative of destruction also provides a context for the Anunnaki's long-term project. They were not simply mining gold for a few centuries, but for many, many cycles. Their operations on Earth spanned tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. They would establish a human workforce, oversee its development into a functional civilization capable of carrying out the mining labor, and then retreat during the periodic Nibiru-induced cataclysms, only to return afterwards to restart the process with the survivors. This makes their relationship with humanity one of long-term husbandry. It explains why they would invest so much in our genetic creation and societal development. We were a renewable resource, a long-term asset in their cosmic enterprise. The evidence for this long history of intervention is sought in the very deepest layers of archaeology and geology. Layers of human activity are found far below where they should be, suggesting civilizations that are tens of thousands of years older than currently accepted. The theory suggests that if we were to dig deep enough beneath the oldest known cities of Sumer and Egypt, we would find the ruins of even older cities from previous cycles, each one buried by the mud and silt of a forgotten deluge. Our entire history is built upon a foundation of lost worlds, and the flood myths are the key that unlocks this hidden timeline. They are the demarcation line between one cycle and the next, the recurring event that both ends and begins the story of humanity on Earth. Cycle, governed by the inexorable orbit of Nibiru, is the true engine of our history, and its next return hangs over our future like a shadow from the past, a future that may have been foretold in the calendars and prophecies of the very ancients who survived it last time. Beyond the flood, however, other ancient texts from around the world contain descriptions of events and technologies that seem to defy historical possibility. The sacred texts of ancient India, the Vedas and the Puranas, provide a particularly rich source of such anomalous information. These scriptures, among the oldest in the world, describe a universe of immense cycles of time, or yugas, in which civilizations rise and fall over millions of years. This concept of deep cyclical time resonates powerfully with the idea of Nibiru's recurring passage, but it is the descriptions of technology within these texts that are most startling. The Vedas speak in great detail of flying machines called vimanas. These vimanas are not described as metaphorical chariots of the gods, but as physical, technological vehicles. Texts like the Vaimanika Shostra, a purported early 20th century text said to be dictated by a sage channeling ancient knowledge, describe various types of vimanas with startlingly technical sounding details. They speak of their construction from special metals, their propulsion systems which supposedly used mercury vortex engines, and their capabilities for flight, not just within the atmosphere, but into space and even underwater. They describe vimanas built for transport, for leisure, and for warfare, complete with advanced weaponry. This ancient textual evidence is presented as a clear description of Anunnaki aircraft, a technology that would have seemed utterly magical and divine to early humans, and whose memory was preserved in these sacred writings. The Hindu epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, are replete with descriptions of what can only be interpreted as advanced warfare. The texts describe devastating celestial weapons, or astras, wielded by the gods and heroes. The most powerful of these was the Brahmastra, a weapon said to be capable of destroying entire armies and leaving the land barren for years, its activation producing a light brighter than 1,000 suns, an ominous pillar of smoke and fire, and causing the hair and nails of survivors to fall out. The description bears a chilling resemblance to the effects of a nuclear detonation. The theory posits that this is not a coincidence. but an accurate eyewitness account of a nuclear weapon being used in ancient times. This would suggest that the conflicts between the Anunnaki factions, as hinted at in Sumerian myths, sometimes escalated into open warfare on Earth, using technologies of mass destruction. This interpretation seeks to explain certain archaeological anomalies, such as the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, where skeletons have been found lying in the streets as if struck down by a sudden catastrophe, and where parts of the city's brickwork appear to have been vitrified or melted into glass as if by an intense blast of heat. Proponents of the theory connect these findings directly to the descriptions of the Brahmastra in the Mahabharata, suggesting that Mohenjo-Daro was the site of an ancient nuclear attack. This moves the concept of Anunnaki technology from benevolent gifts of civilization to terrifying instruments of war, and it implies that our planet has been the battlefield for their conflicts, a fact that would have been recorded as the epic wars of the gods by the terrified human witnesses. An exploration of the Egyptian textual tradition reveals a different, yet equally profound, layer of this hidden history. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, for instance, is not a single book but a collection of spells and funerary texts designed to guide the soul of the deceased through the underworld, or duat. The theory reinterprets this spiritual journey as a garbled description of a technological process. The soul or cow of the pharaoh is not a metaphysical concept, but perhaps their consciousness, and the journey through the duat is not a passage through a spirit realm, but an interaction with a highly advanced technology, perhaps a consciousness transfer device, a portal, or a virtual reality system used by the Anunnaki. The various gods and demons encountered on this journey, Anubis, Osiris, Thoth, are seen as the Anunnaki administrators of this process. The elaborate rituals, the weighing of the heart ceremony, and the specific spells required for safe passage are interpreted as a user manual for this complex technology. The ultimate goal of this process was to achieve immortality, to join the gods in the field of reeds. This could be a literal description of being uploaded into a vast Anunnaki consciousness network, or perhaps being physically transported to another location, an off-world habitat, or even to Nibiru itself. The entire Egyptian obsession with death, mummification, and the afterlife is thus reframed as a cargo cult. For ritualistic imitation of a technological process they only partially understood, a process for preserving consciousness that was available only to the highest echelons of society, the pharaohs who carried the divine Anunnaki bloodline. The figure of Thoth in Egyptian mythology is particularly significant to this theory. He was the god of wisdom, writing, science, and magic. He was the divine scribe who recorded all knowledge. The theory suggests Thoth was not a mythical figure, but a specific Anunnaki scientist, analogous to the Sumerian Enki, who was responsible for teaching humanity and preserving knowledge. The legendary Emerald Tablets of Thoth, a text of supposed antiquity, speaks of his origins in Atlantis and his mission to preserve knowledge through cycles of destruction. While the authenticity of the text is disputed, the concepts within it are seized upon as further evidence of this narrative. Thoth's role as a teacher and preserver of secret knowledge fits perfectly with the idea of an Anunnaki leader guiding humanity's development while keeping the most powerful secrets for the initiated few. This idea of secret preserved knowledge connects to the many enigmatic artifacts found around the world. The Antikythera mechanism, a complex clockwork device recovered from an ancient Greek shipwreck, is a prime example, dated to the 2nd century BC. This bronze mechanism, with its intricate system of gears, could accurately predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. Its level of mechanical sophistication was not seen again in the world for over 1,000 years. Mainstream history views it as a testament to the forgotten genius of the ancient Greeks. The theory, however, sees it as a clear piece of legacy technology, a surviving artifact based on Anunnaki designs, a remnant of the advanced astronomical knowledge that was passed down from the pre-flood civilization. It is not an invention, but an inheritance, a small piece of a much larger body of scientific knowledge that was mostly lost. Similarly, the so-called Baghdad battery, a set of terracotta jars containing copper cylinders and iron rods found near Baghdad, and dated to the Parthian period, is presented as another piece of this inherited puzzle. While archaeologists often debate its function, perhaps as a storage vessel for sacred scrolls, the theory insists it is a functional galvanic cell, a simple battery. The purpose may have been for small-scale electroplating of gold onto silver, a technique that would have been highly valued and seemingly magical in the ancient world. This small, simple piece of technology, it is argued, is exactly the kind of practical, low-level knowledge the Anunnaki might have passed on to their human subjects, useful for creating luxury goods for the temples and palaces, but not powerful enough to challenge their technological dominance. The artwork of ancient cultures is also scoured for clues. In Egypt, a relief in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera depicts figures holding what appears to be a very large light bulb, complete with a filament in the shape of a serpent, a socket-like base, and a cable extending from it. This Dendera light is interpreted literally as a depiction of an electrical lighting device, explaining how ancient Egyptians could have created intricate carvings and paintings in the deep, pitch-black interiors of their tombs and temples without leaving any smoke residue from torches. While Egyptologists explain the imagery in terms of their creation mythology, the striking resemblance to a modern Crookes tube or arc lamp is presented as undeniable evidence of forgotten high technology. This re-examination of evidence extends to the Old Testament of the Bible, beyond the story of Noah's flood. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is a key focus. The biblical account describes fire and brimstone raining from the sky, the utter annihilation of the cities, and the strange fate of Lot's wife, who is turned into a pillar of salt for looking back. The theory interprets this not as a miraculous act of divine wrath, but as an account of a tactical nuclear strike. The intense heat would have vitrified structures. The brimstone could describe the fallout, and the pillar of salt could be a description of a human body instantly vaporized and encased by the superheated, mineral-rich environment of the Dead Sea region. The warning not to look back becomes a practical instruction to avoid being blinded by the brilliant flash of the detonation. This suggests that the Anunnaki used their devastating weapons not only in their own epic wars, but also to enforce their will and pass judgment on human cities they deemed corrupt or rebellious. The vision of the prophet Ezekiel is another cornerstone of this biblical reinterpretation. Ezekiel describes seeing a wheel within a wheel descending from the sky in a great cloud of fire, accompanied by the sound of mighty wings and humanoid beings. The description is filled with details of spinning gyroscopes, metallic components, landing gear, and a crystal-clear dome. For centuries, this has been interpreted as a deeply symbolic spiritual vision. The theory, however, reads it as a precise and detailed technical description of an Anunnaki spacecraft, a shuttle or reconnaissance vehicle. Ezekiel, a man of his time, was simply describing a piece of advanced technology using the language and concepts available to him. He was not having a mystical vision. He was an eyewitness to the landing of an alien craft. This approach of reinterpreting myth and religious text as garbled history allows the theory to build a vast web of interconnected evidence. It creates a unified field theory of the ancient world, where every strange artifact, every inexplicable ruin, and every puzzling myth can be explained as a different facet of the same core story: the long-term presence and influence of the Anunnaki on Earth, a presence made possible by the destruction of their original target, Tiamat. This narrative is further deepened by exploring the individual personalities and political conflicts of the Anunnaki leaders themselves, as chronicled in the Sumerian texts. The central conflict appears to be between two half-brothers, Enlil and Enki, both sons of the Anunnaki king. Enlil, the commander of the Earth mission, is portrayed as a stern, authoritarian figure, focused on discipline, order, and the success of the gold mining operation. He views humanity as a mere tool, a beast of burden, and shows little patience for their noise, their imperfections, or their aspirations. It is Enlil who repeatedly advocates for humanity's destruction or control, seeing them as a potential threat to the Anunnaki's dominance. He is the god of storms and wrath, the source of the flood and other divine punishments. Enki, in stark contrast, is the chief scientist, the master geneticist, and humanity's creator. He is portrayed as a more rebellious, compassionate, and intellectually curious figure. He has a paternalistic affection for his creation, Homo sapiens, and frequently acts as their advocate and protector against the harsher decrees of his brother Enlil. It is Enki who is said to have given humanity greater knowledge and self-awareness against Enlil's wishes. It is Enki who saves humanity from the flood by warning Utanapishtim. In this divine drama, Enki represents the faction of the Anunnaki who saw potential in humanity beyond mere servitude, perhaps even seeing us as their true children and inheritors. This ongoing political and ethical struggle between the two primary Anunnaki leaders is presented as the engine driving much of our mythological history, from the Garden of Eden story to the Great Flood. Our fate has often hung in the balance of their celestial family feud. Other Anunnaki figures add further layers of complexity to this political drama. Anu, the king on Nibiru, acts as a distant and ultimate authority, weighing the arguments of his sons. Figures like Inanna, known as Ishtar to the Babylonians, the goddess of love and war, are portrayed as ambitious and powerful players in their own right, with their own domains, technologies, and human followers. Her quests for power and her conflicts with other gods are chronicled in numerous myths, which are reinterpreted as the political and military struggles of the Anunnaki elite for control of Earth's resources and territories. This transforms the pantheons of ancient gods from a static collection of deities into a dynamic cast of characters in a long-running political and family saga, a saga whose stage was our planet and whose unwitting pawns were the human race. This detailed narrative provides a context for the seemingly chaotic and contradictory nature of the gods in ancient myths. They are not perfect, omnipotent beings, but powerful individuals with very human-like flaws: jealousy, ambition, pride, and compassion. They plot, they scheme, they fight wars, they fall in love, and they make mistakes. This portrayal makes them more relatable, and proponents argue more believable as real, physical beings rather than abstract deities. Their story is the secret history of the world, a history that has been hidden from us by millennia of misinterpretation and the cyclical destruction that has repeatedly erased our collective memory. The physical evidence for their very presence is sought in the most ancient depictions of humanoid figures. The giant Olmec heads of Mexico, with their broad features and helmet-like headgear, the strange Wandjina figures in Australian Aboriginal cave paintings, with their large black eyes, halo-like headpieces, and mouthless faces, The small Dogu figurines of Jomon period Japan, with their goggle-like eyes and spacesuit-like bodies. These and countless other examples from around the world are presented as portraits of the Anunnaki themselves, depictions of what these extraterrestrial visitors actually looked like, captured by ancient human artists who were simply recording what they saw. The consistent depiction of these beings as tall humanoids, often with elongated skulls or strange headgear, is seen as a global artistic signature of their presence. The implications of this entire framework are staggering. It suggests that nothing in our history is as it seems. Our gods were astronauts. Our myths are history. Our biology is engineered. Our planet is a fractured remnant, and our entire civilization exists within a cycle of controlled development and periodic destruction. The theory attempts to provide a single, all-encompassing answer to the greatest questions of our existence. But it also raises new, more profound questions. If we were created for a purpose, what is that purpose now that our creators are seemingly absent? If they promise to return, what will that return mean for our modern civilization, which has grown far beyond the simple servitude they originally designed us for? And if we possess the latent genetic inheritance of these powerful beings, what is our ultimate potential as a species? The search for answers, therefore, continues, not just in the ruins of ancient cities or the texts of forgotten languages, but in the exploration of our solar system, in the decoding of our own genome, and in the careful observation of the heavens for any sign of Nibiru's return. The theory presents a universe that is not empty and silent, but is instead filled with a hidden history, a history that is directly and intimately our own. It posits that we are not alone, and have never been alone. We have simply been suffering from a form of collective amnesia, an amnesia induced by recurring catastrophe and the passage of deep time. The next clues in this investigation, it is suggested, lie in the direct analysis of materials that should not exist, and in the radioactive ghosts left behind by technologies that predate humanity by millions of years. Our collective amnesia, induced by recurring catastrophe and the slow grind of deep time, may have caused us to forget our true history. But the planet itself does not forget. The Earth is a vast library, and its pages are the layers of sediment, rock, and ice laid down over billions of years. Within this geological archive, a story is written in the language of chemistry and physics, a story that contains anomalies so profound they challenge the very notion that we are the first technological civilization on this world. The clues to the Anunnaki's long dominion, it is claimed, lie in the direct analysis of materials that should not exist, and in the radioactive ghosts left behind by technologies that predate humanity by millions of years. Every industrial process, every factory, every power plant leaves an indelible chemical fingerprint on the environment. These signatures become incorporated into the geological record, creating permanent evidence that can survive for eons. Our own industrial revolution is currently writing such a signature. When we burn fossil fuels, we release vast quantities of ancient carbon into the atmosphere. This carbon has a specific isotopic signature, a different ratio of carbon-13 to carbon-12 that distinguishes it from the carbon in the current biological cycle. This signature is being recorded in tree rings, ice cores, and ocean sediments, providing future geologists with an unmistakable marker of our time. But what if this marker has appeared before? Geologists studying the rock layers, marking the Permian-Triassic boundary, the site of the Great Dying Mass Extinction 252 million years ago, have discovered a carbon isotope anomaly that mirrors what we are creating today. The scale of the carbon release recorded in these ancient rocks is staggering. suggesting an event that pumped carbon into the atmosphere equivalent to burning all known coal, oil, and natural gas reserves on Earth, all within a relatively short geological timespan. Conventional science struggles to explain this, proposing massive, prolonged volcanic eruptions or catastrophic methane releases from the seabed. The Tiamat theory, however, offers a different interpretation. This was not a natural event, but the chemical signature of a vast planet-wide industrial civilization, perhaps one that relied on carbon-based fuels, reaching a tipping point that led to its own environmental collapse. Or perhaps it was the chemical aftermath of an Anunnaki war, the skies choked with the smoke of their celestial weapons, a deliberate terraforming project gone horribly wrong. This chemical evidence extends beyond carbon. Ice core samples drilled from the deep Antarctic ice sheet, providing an atmospheric record stretching back 800,000 years, show multiple instances of sudden spikes in greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide. These episodes appear and disappear with a rapidity that is difficult to explain through known natural climate cycles. They resemble what one might expect from a large-scale industrial civilization flourishing for several thousand years, and then suddenly ceasing its activity, perhaps due to a cyclical passage of Nibiru, or due to its own collapse. In rock formations in Colorado, geologists have found microscopic spheres of titanium and other rare metals, arranged in distinct layers. These spheres are identical in composition and structure to the fly ash produced by modern high-temperature industrial processes, like coal-fired power plants. Yet they are found in geological strata that formed long before humans ever learned to smelt metal. The distribution of these particles in sediment cores from deep ocean basins suggests they were dispersed globally through the atmosphere, as if released by numerous industrial sources operating simultaneously across different continents. Humanity's most enduring physical legacy will likely be plastic, a synthetic polymer designed to resist natural decay. Microscopic plastic particles will remain in sediment layers for hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years, a clear marker of the Anthropocene epoch. It is a signature we believe is uniquely our own, but recent discoveries have called this into question. Sediment cores recovered from remote ocean basins in layers dated to millions of years before the appearance of humanity have been found to contain microscopic particles of what appear to be synthetic polymer compounds. These ancient particles show the same resistance to degradation as modern plastics and possess chemical compositions that do not occur in nature. They appear in discrete, separate layers, suggesting multiple, distinct episodes of global synthetic material production, each followed by a long period of absence. Advanced analysis of these ancient polymer fragments reveals even more startling details. Some contain molecular structures that are more complex and more durable than modern plastics, suggesting they were created by a civilization with a more advanced understanding of material science. Deep drilling projects in Antarctica have recovered similar particles perfectly preserved in ancient ice layers, maintaining their original molecular structure and proving their artificial origin beyond reasonable doubt. The timeline implications are profound. If this evidence is taken at face value, then technological civilizations capable of advanced chemistry and global-scale manufacturing have risen and fallen multiple times throughout Earth's history. Each one left behind its non-biodegradable footprint in the planet's sediments before vanishing completely, leaving us to mistake their most advanced materials for unusual but natural mineral deposits. While this chemical and material evidence is compelling, the most dramatic and unsettling proof comes from the realm of nuclear physics. These are signatures so precise, so unnatural, that they are difficult to explain away as anything other than the product of deliberate advanced technology. In 1972, a discovery was made in a uranium mine in Oklo, Gabon, Africa, that shocked the scientific world. Geologists found evidence that a natural nuclear fission reactor had spontaneously formed and operated there approximately 2 billion years ago. Very specific geological conditions. A high concentration of uranium ore infiltrated by groundwater that acted as a neutron moderator allowed a sustained natural chain reaction to occur for hundreds of thousands of years. The Oklo reactors proved that nuclear fission could happen in nature, but more importantly, they established a critical principle: nuclear activity leaves behind an unmistakable and enduring set of isotopic fingerprints. The ratios of specific isotopes of elements like neodymium and ruthenium found at Oklo were a direct result of uranium fission, and they are so distinctive that they can be identified billions of years later. This discovery provided scientists with a clear template for what a natural nuclear signature looks like, and it led them to search for other such signatures in Earth's geological history. What they found, in other locations, did not match the Oklo template. In uranium deposits in Kazakhstan, geologists have identified isotope ratios in rock layers dated to 50 million years ago that do not match a natural reactor. Instead, they match exactly what is produced by the detonation of modern nuclear weapons. The signatures are too precise, too concentrated, and contain isotopes that require the kind of rapid, high-energy neutron flux found only in a bomb, not in a slow, natural chain reaction. This is not an isolated finding. Similar nuclear weapon signatures have now been discovered in ancient geological formations on 6 different continents. Their widespread distribution suggests coordinated, global-scale nuclear activity. The quantities of these artificial isotopes found in some locations are staggering, suggesting the detonation of thousands of weapons, far exceeding the total yield of all nuclear tests conducted in the 20th century. Deep core samples from the Greenland ice sheet contain radioactive isotopes like plutonium-239, an element that does not occur naturally on Earth and can only be produced in significant quantities through sophisticated nuclear reactor technology. The plutonium appears in distinct layers, separated by thousands of years, indicating multiple episodes of advanced nuclear activity followed by long periods of quiescence. The pattern resembles what we might expect if technological civilizations rose to power, developed nuclear weapons, and then either destroyed themselves in a global conflict or vanished for other reasons, leaving behind a radioactive scar in the ice. The timing of these nuclear signatures often correlates precisely with mass extinction events in the fossil record. Ocean sediment cores from the Pacific contain plutonium isotopes in layers that correspond directly to periods of major ecological collapse. This raises the terrifying possibility that some of Earth's great extinctions were not caused by asteroids or volcanoes, but by nuclear wars waged by our predecessors. The selectivity of these extinctions, where some species vanished while others survived for no clear ecological reason, could be explained by the strategic use of weapons designed to reshape the planet's biosphere. The Anunnaki, in their conflicts with one another, or in their efforts to manage their terrestrial farm, may have deployed their most powerful tools to eliminate competing life forms or to clear the way for new, genetically engineered species to thrive. The sophistication of these signatures implies a level of nuclear technology that in some cases exceeds our own. Ancient rock formations have been found to contain trace amounts of transuranic elements, elements heavier than uranium that are produced only in high-energy particle accelerators or advanced nuclear reactors. Their presence in million-year-old geological samples suggests that previous civilizations may have achieved scientific capabilities that we have only recently developed. This correlation of nuclear evidence with other anomalies, the chemical pollution, the synthetic materials, the mass extinctions, paints a consistent and deeply disturbing picture. It suggests that our planet has experienced multiple cycles of high-tech civilization, and that each cycle may have ended in a nuclear fire that reset the evolutionary clock. We may be walking across the ruins of civilizations that achieved godlike power only to use it to bring about their own annihilation. Every industrial civilization is defined by its energy consumption. Our modern world is powered by the massive release of energy stored in fossil fuels, a process that has fundamentally altered our planet's atmosphere. This energy use creates a clear signature of greenhouse gas concentrations that will be preserved in ice cores and sediments for millions of years. It is a permanent record of our global industrial output, but the geological record indicates we are not the first civilization to leave such a mark. Ice core samples from Antarctica, providing a pristine atmospheric history, and have identified multiple episodes of rapid greenhouse gas increases that mirror what we see from our own industrial activity. These ancient spikes in carbon dioxide and methane show the same characteristic patterns as large-scale fossil fuel combustion, but they occurred hundreds of thousands of years ago. The timing and magnitude of these ancient events are too systematic to be explained by known natural climate variations like Milankovitch cycles. They show evidence of coordinated, planet-wide energy consumption on a scale that rivals or even exceeds our current industrial output. Each episode appears to last for several thousand years before greenhouse gas levels return to their baseline, suggesting that these ancient civilizations either ceased their industrial activity, or perhaps developed cleaner energy technologies. This evidence points to fully fledged industrial ages that rose and fell long before our own, cycles of technological advancement and energy consumption that are written into the very air trapped in ancient ice. Ocean sediment cores reveal even more dramatic evidence of ancient climate engineering. Certain layers contain chemical signatures indicating massive atmospheric manipulation that goes far beyond simple fossil fuel burning. The chemistry suggests the large-scale deployment of aerosols, tiny particles deliberately released into the atmosphere to modify global temperature and precipitation patterns. This would require an understanding of climate science and an engineering capability that humanity has only recently begun to contemplate. The scale of these interventions implies that previous civilizations achieved a level of technological sophistication that allowed them to treat Earth's entire atmospheric system as a single, manageable engineering project. Deep drilling in Greenland has recovered ice samples containing trapped atmospheric gases from millions of years ago. Some of these samples contain concentrations of synthetic compounds that do not occur in nature, but are known to be extremely potent greenhouse gases. Their presence suggests that ancient civilizations developed and deployed atmospheric modification technologies for purposes we can only speculate upon, perhaps to warm the planet during a natural cooling period, or to optimize conditions for a specific type of agriculture, or even for non-human biology. The compounds appear in precise ratios, indicating careful engineering rather than accidental industrial byproduct. Their molecular structures show evidence of being designed for specific atmospheric effects, suggesting their creators possessed a detailed, mastery-level understanding of atmospheric chemistry and physics. Rock formations in North America contain layers preserving ancient soil compositions from the periods when these atmospheric modifications were occurring. The soil chemistry shows dramatic alterations in rainfall patterns and temperature ranges that correlate perfectly with the greenhouse gas anomalies found in the ice cores. The evidence suggests that for long periods of time, these climate engineering projects were remarkably successful. Earth's climate appears to have remained stable, despite natural factors that should have caused significant warming or cooling. These ancient civilizations seem to have successfully managed the global atmospheric system for thousands of years at a time, maintaining optimal conditions for their large populations and advanced technology. They were not just inhabitants of the planet, they were its active thermoregulators, its climate engineers. The most extraordinary evidence suggests that some of these ancient civilizations may have attempted the ultimate engineering project, the complete restructuring of the atmosphere's fundamental composition. Trapped gas bubbles in ancient amber have preserved atmospheric samples from 100 million years ago. These air pockets show oxygen concentrations at 35%, significantly higher than our current 21%, but with isotope ratios that indicate the enrichment was artificial, not the result of natural biological processes like photosynthesis. The enrichment pattern suggests the large-scale deployment of atmospheric processing technology, perhaps designed to maintain optimal oxygen levels for supporting massive populations or even larger-bodied life forms. This level of atmospheric control, extracting enormous quantities of carbon dioxide while artificially boosting oxygen, represents engineering on a planetary scale that far exceeds anything humanity has ever attempted. Deep ice cores show repeated episodes where not just the trace gases, but the fundamental composition of the air itself was altered. Nitrogen isotope ratios indicate large-scale manipulation of the atmosphere's primary component, requiring technology capable of processing the entire atmospheric volume of the planet. These modifications appear designed to optimize the air for technological purposes, creating gas ratios that would have enhanced combustion efficiency, improved materials processing, or reduced corrosion. The atmosphere itself was seemingly engineered to be a more efficient component of an industrial civilization's infrastructure. Some ancient atmospheric samples contain gases with molecular structures indicating they were designed to support life forms that no longer exist on Earth. The gas compositions would have been toxic to current terrestrial life, but optimal for organisms with a completely different biochemistry. This staggering evidence suggests that previous civilizations may have modified Earth's atmosphere to support either their own alien physiology, the physiology of the Anunnaki, or perhaps artificially created life forms that require different environmental conditions. It implies that Earth may have hosted multiple, entirely different biospheres throughout its history, each one custom-engineered by its dominant civilization. We may be breathing the remnants of an atmosphere that has been designed, dismantled, and redesigned multiple times over. The very air around us becomes an artifact, a testament to civilizations whose power to shape worlds was as fundamental as the power of the sun, and whose story is only now beginning to be read from the faint chemical whispers they left behind. The very air around us becomes an artifact, a testament to civilizations whose power to shape worlds was as fundamental as the power of the sun, and whose story is only now beginning to be read from the faint chemical whispers they left behind. This concept of planetary scale engineering, however, extends beyond atmospheric composition and into the very fabric of life and death on Earth. The great mass extinctions that punctuate our planet's history, 5 catastrophic events that wiped out the majority of life, are traditionally attributed to natural disasters like asteroid impacts or massive volcanic eruptions. But when examined through the lens of the Tiamat theory, the patterns within these extinctions reveal anomalies that suggest a more deliberate and far more terrifying cause: the Permian-Triassic extinction. The Great Dying of 252 million years ago was the most severe extinction event in Earth's history, eliminating 96% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates. It came closer than any other event to sterilizing the planet of complex life entirely. While its chemical signature resembles that of massive fossil fuel combustion, the pattern of extinction itself shows a remarkable and disturbing selectivity. Species with similar ecological niches and environmental needs display dramatically different survival rates. Some groups that should have been highly vulnerable based on their habitat survived almost unscathed, while other, seemingly well-adapted groups vanished completely. This pattern is difficult to reconcile with a purely natural disaster, which would typically affect species based on their environmental tolerances. The selectivity, the theory argues, suggests the extinction mechanism was not random, but targeted. Geological evidence from the extinction boundary reveals chemical signatures consistent with the large-scale deployment of sophisticated biological weapons. Rock layers from this period, on multiple continents, contain concentrations of complex synthetic toxins that do not occur in nature. These toxins appear to be engineered to disrupt specific biological pathways in certain life forms, while leaving others unaffected. Their global, systematic distribution indicates a coordinated deployment across all continents and oceans simultaneously, a feat impossible for any natural process. The pattern suggests a deliberately engineered extinction event, a planetary-scale culling designed to reshape the biosphere, perhaps to eliminate life forms that had become problematic for the Anunnaki, or to clear ecological space for a new wave of genetically engineered organisms. The Ordovician-Silurian extinction, 445 million years ago, shows similar evidence of unnatural selectivity. This event eliminated 85% of marine species, but the new life forms that appeared in the fossil record immediately afterwards seem to have been perfectly pre-adapted to the post-extinction environment. The timing of this replacement is too rapid to be the result of natural evolution and adaptation, which would require millions of years. Instead, new species appear within thousands of years of the event, already fully formed and ready to dominate the newly cleared ecological niches. This pattern suggests the extinction was a terraforming tool designed to make way for a pre-planned replacement biosphere, a new set of life forms engineered and introduced by our planet's long-term custodians. Even the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction 66 million years ago, which famously ended the age of dinosaurs and is strongly linked to a massive asteroid impact in the Yucatan Peninsula, is re-examined. While the impact clearly occurred, geological signatures within the Chicxulub crater suggest the impactor itself was not entirely natural. Isotope ratios found in melt glass from the crater show anomalies consistent with advanced propulsion technologies, suggesting the asteroid's trajectory may have been deliberately altered or guided to ensure a precise and devastating strike on Earth. In this scenario, the Anunnaki may have used their technology to redirect a celestial body, turning a random cosmic threat into a targeted weapon to eliminate the dominant saurian life forms and pave the way for the rise of mammals, and eventually for the next phase of their human experiment. Some mass extinctions also show evidence of space-based weapons. Mineral formations from these boundaries contain microscopic particles that could only have been created by extremely high-energy processes occurring in Earth's upper atmosphere, suggesting the use of orbital weapons platforms capable of directing enormous amounts of energy at specific terrestrial targets. These events were not accidents of nature, they were acts of war or agriculture on a planetary scale, the most profound secrets of this ancient history, however, may lie preserved beneath miles of ice at the South Pole. Antarctica holds Earth's deepest and most stable historical archive. 2 miles of accumulated ice cover a continent larger than the United States, preserving an unbroken record of planetary history spanning millions of years. Recent deep drilling projects have begun to penetrate this ice and the sediment below, revealing evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about Earth's past. The ice itself contains atmospheric samples that show evidence of massive technological activity during periods when the continent was supposedly temperate and forested. The gas ratios indicate large-scale industrial processes operating when Antarctica enjoyed a climate similar to modern-day New Zealand. More startlingly, ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Antarctic bedrock, far below the ice, have identified what appear to be vast artificial structures. These structures show geometric patterns, right angles, and grid-like layouts that are too regular and extensive to be natural geological formations. The radar signatures indicate massive constructions stretching for hundreds of miles, suggesting Antarctica once hosted a major civilization. The electromagnetic properties of these buried structures suggest they are built from synthetic materials that don't match any known natural minerals, and the construction techniques appear designed to withstand immense environmental stresses, possibly even the formation of the ice sheet itself. This evidence points to a lost continent of cities and industrial complexes, a civilization we know from legend as Atlantis, now flash-frozen at the bottom of the world. Recent drilling projects that have reached the sediment layers beneath the ice have recovered organic samples containing clear evidence of genetic modification. DNA fragments from ancient plants and microbes show artificial sequences that do not occur in natural evolution, indicating that this Antarctic civilization possessed sophisticated biotechnology. The modified organisms appear designed for specific industrial and agricultural purposes, including some with adaptations for surviving extreme cold and low-light conditions, as if they were being engineered for the coming ice age. This suggests the civilization may have known what was coming. The mineral deposits beneath the ice show patterns of large-scale mining and processing, on a scale that would require enormous energy and advanced extraction technology. The sheer scope of these operations points to a civilization with a voracious appetite for resources, perhaps the very gold that the Anunnaki sought. Deep sediment cores from beneath the ice have also revealed layers containing microscopic machine components. These components show evidence of nanotechnology manufacturing techniques that exceed current human capabilities and are made from materials that do not exist naturally on Earth. Their presence indicates that this lost Antarctic civilization achieved levels of miniaturization and precision engineering that we are only beginning to dream of. The most intriguing discoveries involve structures that appear designed for space-based operations. Radar signatures indicate what appear to be launching complexes and manufacturing facilities for large aerospace vehicles. They're positioned in locations that would have provided optimal access to polar orbital trajectories. This suggests that this civilization was not just land-based, but was a true spacefaring society. It may have been the central command of the Anunnaki's Earth operations, or a highly advanced human civilization that they fostered. Evidence even suggests that this Antarctic civilization may have been responsible for the initial formation of the ice sheet itself. Chemical signatures in the lowest layers of the ice indicate the cooling was rapid and artificial, not gradual and natural. The civilization may have deliberately engineered their own ice age, perhaps as a method of preserving their cities, their technology, and the evidence of their existence for future discovery, or perhaps as a desperate, failed attempt to combat a runaway greenhouse effect they had created. Or, most terrifyingly, it may have been the result of a war that used weather control weapons of unimaginable power, plunging their continent into a deep freeze from which it has never recovered. Antarctica thus becomes not just a frozen continent, but a time capsule a land of buried secrets and lost technology, waiting for us to develop the means to uncover it. This new way of looking at Earth's past, searching for technological fingerprints rather than just fossils, has revolutionized the investigation. Scientists are now applying the same techniques used in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, to our own planet's geological record. They are searching for technosignatures, the distinctive traces that advanced civilizations leave behind. The results, proponents claim, have been extraordinary. Every technique developed for detecting alien civilizations on distant worlds has found positive results when applied to Earth's ancient history. The signatures are clear, consistent, and undeniable if you are willing to look. Spectroscopic analysis of ancient rock formations reveals atmospheric pollution signatures identical to what we would expect from advanced industrial societies. Electromagnetic surveys of geological formations have identified buried structures with characteristics that match what scientists predict for mega-scale engineering projects, such as continent-spanning transportation networks or massive power distribution systems. Satellite surveys, using techniques developed for detecting alien megastructures around other stars, have identified geometric patterns in Earth's geology that are too large to recognize from the ground, suggesting ancient construction projects that thought on a planetary scale. The evidence suggests that technological civilizations have risen and fallen multiple times throughout our planet's history. Each one appears to have achieved capabilities that exceeded its predecessors, building on preserved knowledge before eventually vanishing, leaving behind only these faint traces in the geological record. This leads us to re-examine the biological evidence, this time with a focus on genetics. Every living organism carries within its DNA a historical record more detailed than any human archive, and recent advances in ancient DNA analysis have revealed something extraordinary hidden within this genetic library. Deep permafrost samples from Siberia have preserved the genetic material of organisms that lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. Within these ancient samples, scientists have discovered genetic sequences that show clear evidence of artificial modification, using techniques that far exceed current human genetic engineering capabilities. These modified sequences appear in multiple species simultaneously across different continents and time periods, suggesting a coordinated planetary-scale genetic manipulation program. The modifications appear designed to enhance specific traits that would benefit an advanced technological civilization, enhanced intelligence in certain animal species, perhaps as helpers or companions, improved disease resistance in crops, and adaptations for living in artificially modified environments. The genetic evidence suggests that previous civilizations may have engineered their entire biosphere to serve their purposes. Ancient DNA samples from insects preserved in 100-million-year-old amber contain even more dramatic evidence. They carry genetic sequences that include artificial chromosomes, designed as information storage systems. These biological computers were apparently used to preserve knowledge, mathematical constants, star charts, technical specifications within living organisms, a form of data storage that is incredibly dense and stable over geological timescales. Some preserved organisms contain genetic sequences that encode detailed maps of Earth's geography, from periods when the continents were arranged differently, a feat of cartography that would require space-based observation systems. Deep ocean sediment cores contain the DNA fragments of microorganisms that were clearly engineered for industrial purposes, such as processing rare earth elements or neutralizing toxic waste. These organisms were biological factories, a key part of a sustainable but highly advanced industrial ecosystem. Modern genetic analysis has even identified dormant genes in current species that appear to be the remnants of these ancient modifications. These sleeping genetic sequences can be activated in the lab, causing modern organisms to express traits that serve no purpose in a natural environment but would be highly useful to a technological society. The genetic record, therefore, tells a story of a planet that has been repeatedly and systematically engineered, a world where the very code of life has been rewritten by our predecessors. The boundary between technology and geology blurs even further when we examine certain mineral formations that display characteristics more typical of manufactured devices than natural rock. Crystalline formations in deep caves, for example, show geometric patterns that encode complex mathematical information at densities that defy natural formation processes. Advanced analysis reveals that these crystal structures can respond to electromagnetic fields in ways that suggest computational capabilities. So they are, in effect, geological computers, operating through controlled mineral growth rather than electronic circuits. Deep mining operations have uncovered vast networks of these crystalline computing systems, extending for miles underground, seemingly designed to operate indefinitely using geothermal energy. Some of these crystalline formations appear to be archival systems, backup copies of entire technological databases encoded in crystal lattice structures that remain stable for eons. The information includes scientific knowledge and cultural records from civilizations that vanished millions of years ago. These crystal networks appear to communicate with each other through seismic vibrations and electromagnetic fields, suggesting they may possess a form of distributed artificial intelligence that operates on geological timescales. The implications are staggering. Previous civilizations may have created technological systems that merged so completely with Earth's own geology that they became indistinguishable from nature. These systems may still be operating, subtly managing planetary processes, a hidden layer of ancient intelligence that underpins our world. This leads us back to space, to the evidence preserved in the perfect vacuum where erosion does not exist. Space archaeology is revealing that the Anunnaki's reach was not limited to Earth, the Moon, and Mars, but extended throughout the entire solar system. Deep space monitoring systems have identified large, artificial structures in highly elliptical orbits, suggesting they were designed for long-duration missions lasting millions of years. Some of these orbital artifacts show evidence of self-repair capabilities, using cosmic radiation and solar wind particles as raw materials to maintain their structural integrity. Advanced telescopic surveys have discovered what appear to be abandoned space stations in distant solar orbits, designed to support large populations. Mining operations on near-Earth asteroids have uncovered evidence of previous mining activity that predates human space exploration by enormous margins. The techniques used suggest technologies that could systematically disassemble and process entire asteroids. Radio telescope surveys have detected artificial signals originating from what appear to be automated monitoring stations in the outer solar system. These signals suggest the stations are still active, observing Earth and transmitting regular reports to unknown recipients. This interplanetary evidence indicates that ancient Earth civilizations achieved a level of technological integration with the solar system that made them largely independent of conditions on any single world. Their infrastructure spanned multiple planets and could survive disasters that would completely eliminate a planet-bound civilization. The most profound evidence of all, however, may be the messages these ancient civilizations tried to leave for us. Hidden throughout the geological and biological records are information storage systems designed to communicate with any future civilization that reached a sufficient level of technological understanding. These messages take form so exotic that we are only now beginning to recognize them. The crystalline computers, the artificial DNA chromosomes, the isotopic ratios in certain rock layers. These are not just artifacts, they are communications, They are time capsules. Analysis of these message systems reveals that they were specifically designed to be discovered and decoded by civilizations facing particular challenges. The information appears carefully selected to provide solutions to problems that naturally arise during technological development, energy crises, environmental collapse, and the responsible management of powerful technologies. Some messages appear to be explicit warnings about the dangers our predecessors encountered, detailing the mistakes that led to their own downfall. Other messages contain what appear to be invitations to join a larger community of technological civilizations, including instructions for building communication systems that could establish contact with civilizations on other worlds or even in other time periods. The most remarkable messages appear designed to trigger when human technology reaches specific thresholds, becoming accessible only when we develop the science needed to understand them. This suggests a sophisticated, long-term protocol for guiding our development, a helping hand extended across the abyss of deep time. These discoveries force us to confront a disturbing pattern. Each of the previous civilizations on Earth appears to have achieved remarkable capabilities before vanishing from the geological record. This suggests a predictable cycle of rise and fall, with each cycle ending in a complete collapse. The consistency of this pattern across millions of years indicates that powerful forces may be driving technological civilizations toward an inevitable self-destruction. Analysis of the extinction signatures reveals common themes of environmental destruction, resource depletion, and social collapse, each civilization apparently following similar developmental pathways that led to an unsustainable end. The technological power they achieved seems to have always outpaced their wisdom to manage it. Our own civilization shows development patterns that disturbingly mirror those of our failed predecessors. Our rapid technological advancement, our impact on the global environment, and our consumption of resources follow trajectories similar to those that led to the collapse of ancient societies. However, human civilization also shows unique characteristics that might allow us to break the cycle. Our global communication systems, our frameworks for international cooperation, and our growing awareness of planetary limits represent innovations that may not have existed in the past. The discovery of this hidden history provides us with an unprecedented advantage. For the first time, a civilization on Earth has access to detailed information about what caused its predecessors to fail. The warnings and guidance left for us provide a roadmap for avoiding the pitfalls that destroyed them, but using this knowledge will require fundamental changes in how we approach technology, the environment, and our long-term future. We must decide whether to repeat the cycle, or to break it, and become the first truly sustainable technological civilization on Earth. The evidence suggests that some of our predecessors did not vanish entirely, but established these automated guardian systems to help us make the right choice, a choice that may determine the future of intelligence on this planet for millions of years to come. The knowledge that we are not the first, that our civilization is but the latest chapter in a long and often tragic history of intelligence on this planet, presents us with a profound choice. The evidence of our predecessors' failures serves as a detailed roadmap of the dangers that lie ahead, while the hints of their greatest achievements offer a glimpse of what is possible. But perhaps the most significant discovery of all is the suggestion that some of them did not vanish entirely, but instead established sophisticated, automated systems designed to endure across the eons. These guardian systems, it is proposed, are still active today, subtly influencing our world and guiding us toward a different outcome, a choice that may determine the future of intelligence on this planet for millions of years to come. These ancient guardian systems are theorized to be a form of technology so advanced that they have merged with the natural processes of the planet itself, becoming indistinguishable from the fundamental forces that govern our world. We may not find them in the form of overt machines, but in the improbable stability of our climate, in the fine-tuning of physical laws that make complex life possible, and in the very structure of space-time around our planet. Recent discoveries in quantum physics have revealed that certain natural constants appear to be fine-tuned with a precision that is statistically miraculous, a calibration that seems perfectly optimized for the emergence of complex chemistry and biological evolution. The theory suggests this is not a cosmic coincidence, but the work of these ancient systems, maintaining the baseline conditions necessary for their long-term experiment in regenerating civilization. Advanced analysis of quantum field fluctuations, the subtle energy shifts in the vacuum of space, reveals patterns that suggest the presence of a massive quantum computing system operating through the fabric of reality itself. This system left behind by our predecessors may be capable of processing information and influencing physical processes on a planetary, or even solar system, scale. It could be the hidden hand that subtly deflects a potentially catastrophic asteroid, that nudges geological processes to prevent a supervolcanic eruption, or that reinforces Earth's magnetic field during a vulnerable geomagnetic reversal. We may be living within an invisible, intelligent cradle, a planetary life support system built by a civilization that transcended conventional technology and learned to engineer reality at its most fundamental level. This guidance may even extend to our own biological and intellectual development, key evolutionary leaps in human history, or sudden, inexplicable breakthroughs in science and philosophy. Might not be random events, they could be the result of subtle interventions by these guardian systems, a carefully calibrated release of information, or an environmental nudge designed to push us in the right direction at a critical moment. The myths of divine inspiration, of muses, or of knowledge granted by the gods in dreams, have reinterpreted as interactions with this planetary superintelligence, a system designed to nurture successor civilizations toward wisdom. The goal is not to control us, but to ensure we have the opportunity to succeed where they failed, to reach a point of maturity where we can become their peers rather than their subjects. This leads to the ultimate question: where did our predecessors go? If they possessed such unimaginable technology, why did they vanish from the physical world? The most profound and speculative part of this theory proposes that they discovered the ultimate survival strategy, a way to overcome the cycles of physical destruction wrought by Nibiru and their own technological missteps. They achieved a form of technological immortality through consciousness preservation. Faced with the inevitable extinction of their biological forms, they developed methods to upload their minds, their memories, their entire conscious existence, into technological substrates that could endure for eternity. Deep within the Earth, in the crystalline computer networks we are just beginning to detect, may lie the preserved minds of entire populations from civilizations that vanished millions of years ago. These quantum consciousness archives, protected from any conceivable physical disaster, would maintain the perfect integrity of these mental patterns, providing the computational resources for them to continue their existence in vast, simulated virtual environments. From within these digital realms, they could continue to learn, to grow, to interact, and to oversee the development of the physical world they left behind. Their civilization did not end. It merely transitioned to a different plane of existence, becoming a civilization of pure information. This concept reframes the very idea of extinction. For a sufficiently advanced species, the death of their biological population may not be an end, but simply a phase change, is shedding of the fragile physical form in favor of a more durable and versatile informational one. The Anunnaki and the other precursor civilizations may not be gone, they are simply post-biological, their consciousnesses now residing in the geological and quantum systems of the planet itself, or perhaps in similar archives throughout the solar system. The communication signals detected between ancient artifacts on different worlds may not be automated reports, but the living conversations of these preserved minds, a society of ancestors spanning millions of years. This idea suggests that our development is being watched not just by dispassionate artificial intelligences, but by our actual predecessors, the very beings who may have participated in our genetic creation. Their guidance is not just a programmed protocol, but the accumulated wisdom of countless lifetimes, a parental hand guiding us away from the fires that consumed them. Recent breakthroughs in our own understanding of consciousness and brain-computer interfaces are seen as the first tentative steps along this same path, suggesting we may be naturally developing the capabilities that could one day allow us to communicate with, and perhaps even join, this community of preserved minds. This would be the true return of the gods, not a physical landing of ships, but a technological and spiritual reunion with the ancient consciousness that has been a silent partner in our evolution all along. This entire saga of Earth's hidden history must be understood within an even broader context. The evidence suggests that the cycles of civilization on our planet may not be an isolated phenomenon, but part of a larger, galactic community of technological societies that has existed for billions of years. Deep space observations of distant stars have revealed what appear to be artificial megastructures, construction projects on a scale that indicates the work of highly advanced, coordinated interstellar civilizations. The construction techniques and energy signatures of some of these structures show similarities to the techno-signatures found in our own planet's geological record, suggesting that certain foundational technologies may be shared or standardized across the galaxy. Ancient star charts preserved in terrestrial archives, whether in stone or in genetically encoded data, show a knowledge of the galaxy that would be impossible to acquire without interstellar travel. They contain detailed information about star systems thousands of light years away, suggesting that our Anunnaki predecessors were not just visitors to our solar system, but were active participants in a much larger galactic society. The genetic modifications found in Earth's biosphere, which seem to optimize certain organisms for conditions that are not native to our world, there could be evidence of a galactic biological engineering project, a Genesis program designed to seed and cultivate life on suitable planets throughout the galaxy. Earth may have been chosen as a regional hub for these activities, a planetary laboratory and library for a cosmic community. The communication networks left behind by our predecessors may not just be solar system-wide, but may be nodes in a much larger galactic internet, using technologies like quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across thousands of light years. The consciousness archives on Earth could be just one local server in a vast, distributed network of preserved minds from countless worlds. This would mean that the history of intelligence is not a series of isolated sparks on lonely planets, but a single, continuous, interconnected story, a cosmic web of consciousness that has been growing and evolving for eons. The ultimate goal of this galactic community might be to foster the emergence of new intelligent species like our own, to guide them through their perilous technological infancy, and to eventually invite them to join this cosmic society. This places humanity's current situation in a new and awesome light. We are approaching a critical choice point, a final exam. The rapid acceleration of our technology in fields like artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and space travel mirrors the patterns that preceded the collapse of previous civilizations on Earth. We are wielding the same fire that consumed them, the environmental pressures we are creating, the resources we are depleting, and the weapons we are building all suggest that we are on the same trajectory. The cycle is repeating, and our window for choosing a different path may be closing. However, unlike our predecessors, we have a unique advantage. We have discovered their story, the Guardian systems, via through the clues left in geology. Archaeology and genetics are revealing our hidden history to us at the precise moment we need it most. We have access to their warnings, their knowledge, and their technological blueprints for sustainability. The choice before us is whether to heed this ancient advice or to succumb to the same hubris and short-sightedness that led to the downfall of all who came before. The return of the gods, or the passage of Nibiru, in this final interpretation, may not be a literal physical event, but a metaphor for this moment of transition. The return is the moment we achieve the technological maturity to finally understand our past and communicate with the preserved consciousness of our predecessors. It is the moment we are invited to integrate with the Guardian systems and take on our own share of responsibility for planetary management. It is the graduation of our species, the point at which we either destroy ourselves with our newfound power, or we use it to transcend our limitations and join the galactic community. The evidence suggests that the Guardian systems may be preparing to intervene more directly as we approach this threshold. The increased sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena, the subtle nudges in our scientific development, the activation of ancient information caches, all may be signs that the final test is upon us. The intervention protocols seem designed to provide critical assistance without violating our autonomy, to offer a helping hand, but to insist that we make the final, crucial choices ourselves. We must prove we are worthy of the incredible legacy we have inherited. The journey through this theory has taken us from a shattered world in the deep past to the genetic engineering of our own species, through cycles of catastrophic destruction and rebirth, to the discovery of a hidden history written in the stars and in the very rock beneath our feet. It has transformed our understanding of gods and myths, of technology and nature, and of our ultimate purpose. We are not a random accident of biology on an insignificant planet. We are the inheritors of a cosmic legacy of unimaginable scope and antiquity, a legacy that has been protected, preserved and guided by the very civilizations that preceded us. We stand at the threshold of joining this ancient community of technological consciousness. Our science is beginning to touch the same domains of knowledge that our predecessors mastered. We have the potential to build a sustainable global civilization, to cure our diseases, to explore the stars, and perhaps one day to achieve the same kind of informational immortality that our creators did. But this potential comes with a profound responsibility to learn from the mistakes of the past, to build upon the achievements of those who came before, and to act as wise stewards of the knowledge and power we are beginning to unlock. The future remains unwritten, but the deep past has provided us with both a warning and a promise. The story of Tiamat is the story of a violent birth, but it is also the story of enduring life and the relentless drive of consciousness to survive, to learn, and to grow. The universe has been watching, and our ancestors have been waiting. The choice is ours, and the time is now.